right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. January is upon us, and actually, it's almost already gone. With those Christmas holidays eating into the first part, it does seem like a really, really short month. But here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we decided to have a theme this month of polar exploration. So we've been talking to some scientists, some explorers, who dedicate their time to exploring our polar regions, the changes they're seeing happening, documenting them, and then, of course, sharing what they see with the general public, because that's a really important thing to do. Today, joining us, quite a few times we've had Andreas B. Heide join us, and he is the captain and expedition leader of the Arctic Sense expedition. Last time we connected with him, he was on his 37-foot sailing vessel, the Barba, and they were up near Arctic Svalbard, using a Starlink system to be able to connect live with us for the first time while they were sailing, which was really, really cool. So this mission had a goal of collecting important information about our changing planet. So they covered over 2,000 nautical miles, exploring the sea ice around Arctic Svalbard, leaving originally from Norway. They used a variety of really cool tools like drones, underwater cameras, and things like that to film orcas and walrus and humpback whales. So when we did connect with them, they shared some really cool footage from the ROV that they were using. I think it was called Leonard. Very, very cool. They were uncovering mysteries underneath the sea ice. So the expedition is over. Andreas is back in an office setting, but we get to catch up on all the amazing things that happened. So let me bring him in live. Hey, Andreas, how you doing?
Hi, Joe. I'm doing good, thanks. And yourself?
Good, good. We've got you in a more stable office setting today, which is kind of cool. But I imagine, the expedition as a whole was pretty amazing.
Yes, it's always great to be out at sea, but it's also good to get back home and enjoy the comforts of a nice and dry office, or be it flat.
Now, remind me, I'm trying to remember another time in the past we connected from this spot. Can we see the boat? Can you see the boat from your window?
Yeah, unfortunately, now I'm in the office, so we don't see much of interest. But
Gotcha.
I can see the boat from my home, which is
Gotcha.
useful for preparing it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we would love to dive into the expedition. You had, some amazing people on board. I know you had, I think Sally Earthrow was on board for a little bit, and she's done some stuff with us in the past. So yeah, we'd love to catch up and see how the rest of the expedition went.
Perfect. I'll give you like a small general introduction to myself, to Barba, touch on the expedition, and the name of the project we're running is Arctic Sense. And I'll start by showing a film of some of the work I've done in the past with orcas. I remember the first time I jumped in, I was scared to death. You know that it has the power to mangle you in a second, but it chooses not to, and that fascinates me. My name is Andreas B. Heide. I'm a sailor, adventurer, and a marine biologist from Norway. This is my third season in northern Norway, where I spent the winter with my boat Barba. It's harsh, and it's also tremendously beautiful. There is no sign of people. To me, it's nature at its very best. Our goal for this season is to make a documentary about orcas and whales in the wild. What makes interaction with orcas so special is that you know that it's the apex predator of the sea. It has a tremendous power. Often we have to observe them from distance, and at some point they are relaxed and you can approach them, and that's when you get them playful. They're so gentle, yet so fast, and they're so powerful, yet so very calm and peaceful. To me, these whales and the era they're in, they're kind of the pinnacle of interacting with nature. Once you've made eye contact with an orca, there is no turning back. It's a moment you never forget. Did that work out all right?
Joe, are you guys with me? So, Joe, I can't hear you at the moment.
Yeah, we got you loud and clear, and the sound played beautifully. It was my mistake for not noticing your earbuds before we started.
No worries at all. So I'll keep going then. So yeah, I like to show this video because it shows a bit of the work we do in the field with the sailboat and what I'm doing when I'm not in the office. As for myself, Andreas B. Heide from Norway. I'm an expedition sailor and a marine biologist and also a diver. So my main job is to look after the sailing vessel Barba, which you see here in the photo. She's 12 meters long, 37 feet, and this is a photo taken from the mast. We have a small dinghy in the back that we can use to go ashore or to deploy divers and do a whole lot of things. And this photo was taken in Svalbard this past summer, 2023. So the most important thing for any boat is the crew. In this photo, we have Sally. Sally, she's Alex Maloney, sorry. She's a former Olympic sailor, a silver medalist from Rio. We also have Marta Trodal. She's an oceanographer. So she's really good at doing mathematical calculations. Additionally, you see the boat here. You see this white squared disc on your left-hand side. That's a Starlink internet antenna. So that's a new technology we've taken into use to communicate with the outside world. So even when we're in the middle of nowhere, up in the ice, we can do video conference calls and do presentations for exploring by the seat of your pants, amongst others. Also on this boat, we have a windmill that generates electricity, a solar panel for electricity, and we also have an engine to propel the boat. The most important thing with a sailboat, though, is the sails. And here you can see we're sailing in quite rough conditions, but a sailboat can handle a lot of weather. And also what's important with a sailboat is that we can cover great distances while using no fuel at all. Which brings me to the next slide, which is the expedition we did in 2023. We've sailed to Svalbard 3 times now, and then we go up the Norwegian coast all the way up to Svalbard, which is close to the pack ice of the North Pole. And on your left-hand side in this photo, you can see the northern parts of Canada and Greenland, and then Iceland, and then Norway. So we sail all the way up to 80 degrees north, which is north of Alaska. So what I'm going to show you now is a 3-minute video with some highlights of the work we did in Svalbard.
Are you sure you don't want to launch it? Come on. Okay.
Are you sure? Really
Yes,
sure?
yes. Don't worry.
Okay. I trust you, Andreas.
Yep. Yes, he's getting it. Good job, guys. He's getting it.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at a map of the polar bear concentration, and it looks a lot like where we are. Yeah, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I think.
In the children's corner, show us what do you have here. What is this? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna push that other one. Yeah, I'll push it with the bow. Is the 360 filming?
You think those polar bear pictures and the orcas? Pretty cool. All right, let's get a couple questions.
What you've seen today, you can just go tell them about it, and they might get interested. They might learn a lot more. They might contribute into the field more significantly.
So that was a little sneak peek into what we did this summer. It was filmed during 3 weeks, and I'm going to talk you through some of the gear we used. And in this photo, you're seeing myself with an underwater scooter, which is an underwater torpedo, if you like, that pulls you through the water. And we have a 360 camera on that scooter, which captures everything around you. And then we've selected this frame where we can see the ROV, which is a remote, it's an underwater drone in the background. And then you see the boat and some ice and then another diver in the back. So the most exciting gear we had this summer was this ROV. So this is a underwater drone or rowboat, if you like, that can dive to 500 meters, 1,500 feet, and live stream video footage to the surface. And we can sail this around as we want. As opposed to a drone that flies in the air, you need a cable to send the signal because signals won't transmit through water. And on the top of this device, you see a 360 camera. The next slide is a photo from inside the boat. Here you have Antoine, the operator of the ROV. He's a former European champion in gaming, so he was big on computers and still is. And now he uses his time and energy on this ROV system, working with Netflix and Disney and also with us, which is very exciting. So he uses this computer to control the ROV, to direct the ROV, position it, but also to film and capture footage. And you saw some of that footage in the previous film. And one of the things it allows us to do is to get footage like this up close and personal with walrus. And a walrus is a big seal that lives in the Arctic. It can weigh up to 1.5 tons, which is about the weight of a car. And they are very aggressive. And I'm happy to dive with any animal in the Arctic except from the walrus. So then it's nice to be able to send the ROV so we don't risk getting injured by a walrus, because I think they can be very dangerous. They're aggressive and protecting their pack. So it's a social animal. In addition to the ROV, we've used sound recording devices. So this is a PAM guard system where we tow hydrophones after the boat. The computer records the sound, and it's also able to triangulate the direction to tell us where and how far away the whales are. And what we're seeing here is a spectrogram, which is a visualization of the sound. And next now I'm going to play you a recording of orcas that we recorded some years back. So I really like these underwater sound recordings, because when I was a kid looking at the ocean, I always thought the ocean was a silent place. But now that I've gotten to work with all the scientists, I've gotten to know that there's so much going on under the surface, including a lot of animals, especially whales, using sounds to communicate. And we know that the orcas, for instance, has a very advanced vocabulary with up to closer to 30 different sounds that they can put together, and they use a bit like we use the alphabet. So that's very exciting. On the sadder side of things, being out there in nature, we also do encounter a lot of plastic. So this is a plastic barrel that we found when we were out looking for polar bears. We brought this barrel back to land, but there's still a lot of plastic out there. The good thing is that a lot of work is being done to collect plastic, but we all have an obligation to reduce the use of plastic and also pick up plastic when we see it out in nature. Additionally, we know that the ice is melting in the Arctic, which is worrying, because the Arctic ecosystem, the polar bears, the walrus, and all the marine life up north, including the whales, relies on the ice to hunt and to find food. So on the positive side of things, in 2021, we met with 10 blue whales in a couple of hours, and we know that the blue whale was almost hunted to extinction. But now they're making a slow and hopeful recovery. And you can see the boat is about, with the dinghy, the small boat, it's 15 meters, 45 foot. And you can see that the blue whales are much longer than 45 foot. And the blue whale is the biggest animal that's ever lived. It's bigger than the dinosaurs, weighing up to 200 tons and measuring close to 30 meters or 90 feet, if you like. So this brings me towards the end of this presentation. Before I end it, I'd like to say a few things about what you can do for the ocean. And what you do on land matters for what happens in the ocean. And one of the things we all can do, including myself, is to reduce the amount of items we use, to reuse items. If you have something you're not using, give it away to a friend. Also repair things on the boat. We do that all the time, fixing our things, recycle the things you're not going to use, and also share the knowledge with your friends and parents. So that was the presentation for today. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them now.
All right. Well, Andreas, it's really great to see that footage. It's it's one thing to visit you on the ship and see a little bit of things happening. We saw the ROV in the water and things like that. But it is really cool to see some of the images, some of the wildlife that you got to see. I think the first question before we start getting some students in on the action is, that's your third time taking the ship up until the Arctic sea ice up around Svalbard. Do you think there'll be a fourth?
Definitely. So the question is, I'm working on a bigger boat as well. So let's see how that's going to unfold. But for sure, there will be a fourth time and a fifth time and more if things keeps going to plan.
All right. Very cool. Well, if you were tuning in via YouTube, now is the time to use that chat sidebar and send in some questions. So I've got a question here in the chat to start, and then I'll bring in a camera classroom. But the ship, the Barba, what is life like on the boat? What's a typical day like?
Well, it's one of the greatest things about being on the boat. It's you're always close to work. You just have 12 meters or 37 feet to roam on, and it's not like when here I have to get to the office and from the office and go to the store and whatnot. So on the boat you have everything you need around you, and you're out anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks at a time. And it's also very social. Like there's 4 or 5 of you in this limited space, so 4 or 5 good friends. It's a big contrast to being on land. But generally, I love being on the boat, but I'm also happy getting off the boat every now and then, if that makes sense. So after 3-4 months, it's good to resume a normal life.
Yeah, and being on the boat and so close to work, I guess, Does that make it hard to switch off, at the end of your watch to rest, or are you just exhausted by the end of a watch?
Depends on the day, but you don't feel like you're working. That's all you're doing. It's a bit like, I haven't been in space, but I can imagine if you're on a space station, that's a bit the same feeling. You're in this place where you can't really go anywhere. So we're on the boat, and I'm quite happy about it.
Yeah.
Some days are harder than others. If we have rough weather, it's a different thing from a nice, calm, sunny day.
All right. Well, let's bring in, we've got some fifth graders. Miss Padberg's crew is hanging out with us in Kansas City. How we doing, Kansas City?
Yeah.
Did the donuts work? Did they wake you up?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Where do you get all the equipment?
Where do we get it, or where do we store it? No.
Where do you get the equipment, I guess? Yeah.
How much money it costs?
Well, it depends a bit. So I don't own all the equipment. So for instance, the ROV, or the underwater drone, that's my friend who owns that system, and he brings it on the boat. And then we also have partners, like sponsors, that helps us get the gear. And then some of the gear I have to buy myself. And a lot of the gear I've used for more than 20 years. So it lasts a long time. But there's a lot of things we need to be out there.
Yeah. Andreas, can you give them an idea? I mean, the ROV is a beautiful ROV. On the Darwin 200 ship that we're sailing around the world right now, we have an ROV on board, and it costs about $1,000. But this is a bit different. About how much is this unit?
Yeah, this is about $150,000. So it's a good thing I don't own it. But it's the same ROV is being used to film for Netflix and Disney, and you could see the quality is quite mind-blowing. And the fact that we can dive down to 500 meters or 1,500 feet, which is impossible for a human diver, it's a big advantage. Also, you can spend a lot of time on the water. When you scuba dive, you're limited by your scuba tanks, and you can stay down for an hour. But with this ROV, you can stay down for 10 hours, which is a big advantage. And also, it's nice that it's the ROV that gets attacked by walrus and not one of us.
All right, very cool. Do we have another question there in Kansas City?
Yes, Annika's coming.
How do you feel when you're underneath the water?
So I've been so much underwater. So when I'm under, I'm very calm, and there's no distractions, and you're just focused on what you're doing. And also, what's nice about being underwater, I'm sure you felt that in the swimming pool maybe, is that you're weightless, so you don't weigh anything. So getting into the water, it's a lot of work. The dive gear is very heavy, so it weighs close to 100 pounds. But then when you get into the water, you're weightless, and that's a good feeling. And also, it's very exciting. Sometimes you have whales or seals or all kinds of sea animals down there. So never knowing what you're going to find, that's part of the reason I keep diving.
All right. Yeah, go for it. If you have another one.
Nika.
Oh, maybe not. Okay, we'll grab one more, and then we'll go back to YouTube. Oh, yeah, come on up.
What's your favorite Arctic animal?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think the most impressive animal is the polar bear, that you have this big bear living on the ice and out in the snow. And then, I think it must be the polar bear. It's quite an awesome animal. And it's also one I respect a lot, because it's one of few animals that actively will hunt on humans. So you have to be careful. But we've never had any problems with them. Not big problems anyways.
All right. I'm going to grab a couple questions from classrooms on YouTube. But fifth graders, if you have more questions, just send someone up to the camera, and I'll see them backstage. That'll be my cue to come back and visit you guys. So speaking about what it's like to be in the water, we have a question here about cold. Do you get cold when you're in the water?
Yes, I get really cold. So when we dive up in the Arctic, the water is below freezing, actually, because it's there's salt in the water that makes it reach a temperature below freezing. Like fresh water would freeze in these temperatures, but it's with the salt. So what we do to mitigate that, we have something called a dry suit, where you can put normal clothes under the suit, and it keeps the water out. And then you pump air into the suit when you dive to adjust your buoyancy, how you float in the water. But even with all of this fancy gear, it still gets very cold. So after half an hour, you're shivering and you want to go back to the boat and get a hot cup of tea. So I've been doing a lot of freezing in my life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Canada, it gets pretty cold, especially when you dive in the winter. I find when I'm in the water, maybe I don't feel it as much, but when I get out of the water, that's when I just, freeze right up. And maybe it's the wind hitting, I don't know, but I find, getting out of the water is so much worse.
Yeah, that's the wind chill, but it's,
All right, we got a food question. So were you able to store all the supplies you needed on the ship, or did you make some pickups along the way?
No, we have, so we can have food for up to a month on the boat, but 2-3 weeks is the typical average. And the only food we pick up on the way is we catch a fish every now and then when we're hungry and need some proteins.
All right. And one more here from YouTube, and then I see the 5th graders up again. So weather, did you run into any storms or any kind of unsettling weather?
No, not this time. So we sailed during the summer, which is generally calm. And then also with the Starlink, we're able to look into the future, if you like, so we can see what the weather is going to be like in the coming days. So if we see bad weather coming in, we hide in a safe anchorage. So that's worked well this summer, but in the past we've had some really bad weather, and yes, I have been quite scared at times and worried, but that's part of the job. So far, so good.
All right, let's bring Kansas City back in.
How often do you see animals, and are they shy or not?
That's also a very good question. And so how often we see animals, that depends on where you are. So if you are in the right place in Northern Norway in the winter, you will see whales every day, all the time. And then in Svalbard, what's also interesting, a lot of the animals there, they haven't been hunted for a long time, so they don't naturally fear humans. So a reindeer can walk all the way up to you. And the big walrus, they are so confident, the males, that they're not scared of anything, not even polar bears. So a walrus, if you wanted to, you could walk, or you could crawl all the way up to him and rest your head on its side. But I wouldn't advise you doing that. As for the whales, the adults, they typically ignore you. They're just doing their thing. But sometimes you have the calves, the young ones, swim up to you and be curious and come and play around. So we have, a lot of these animals are very curious. And same with the walrus, it will come all the way up to the boat, and that's when I'm not getting in the water. So a bit of everything, from very shy to very cozy. Like the seals can come up and nibble on you, and they haven't seen anything like this before, and they can come out to check it out.
All right, great question, bud.
How did you feel when you were first in the water?
Oh, that's so many years ago now, so I can hardly remember. But I remember the first time scuba diving. Then I was 16 years old, I think, 15 or 16. And I remember my first breath underwater. That was a very, interesting sensation, being able to breathe underwater, because it's a bit counterintuitive. We're not supposed to be able to breathe underwater, but with the technology, we're able to do it. So yeah. But generally, like when you've been a lot in the water, it feels like a very nice and good place to be.
How long do you stay underwater for?
It depends. Like when we're free diving, which means you're just holding your breath at the surface like a seal, and then you go down, it's 1 to 2 minutes. But when we're scuba with tanks where you have compressed air. Then we can stay down for an hour and a half. But after an hour and a half, you get cold and hungry, and you want to get back up again.
All right. Great questions, fifth graders. I'll keep my eye out. We might have time to visit you guys one more time. So pop up to the camera if you do have some more questions. Let's grab a few more here from YouTube. And the first one here is about the free diving. Is it harder to hold your breath in the cold water than in the warm?
Yes, I think it's harder because it's, you're less relaxed, you're a bit cold. And also with all the bulky gear you have to wear, it's makes you less nimble in the water, which also makes you use more energy, and which reduces your time underwater. But it's not that hard. If you have good gear and you're used to it, it works pretty well.
Okay. So you talked about the using the ROV and getting to go pretty deep with it. Were there any exciting finds or unexpected, maybe biodiversity? What did you see under the ice?
So we had one dive to about 200 meters in Svalbard, and we didn't make any sensational discoveries. But also finding nothing is also finding something, because then we know what it's like down there. And one of the things we did do was to deploy a shark bait to look for Greenlandic sharks, which is a big docile shark that lives in the Arctic waters. But we didn't find any Greenlandic sharks, but we did have a lot of interesting encounters with walrus, but this was in shallow waters. But we also have used this drone in the Norwegian fjords, and here there is a lot more life in the depth with sharks and deep water fish and all kinds of species.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier this is your third time taking the Barba up to Arctic Svalbard. And I know, 3 years might not be a long span of time, but have you noticed any differences, or have you heard stories from others about how it's changing?
Well, my first time there was in 2015. And definitely we can tell that it's changing. There's less ice and it's getting warmer. But it's hard to see a difference over a short time span, be it 10 years. But when I go to Svalbard, I read a lot of books about how it's been there in the past. And it's also to learn from the people that lived with nature and see how they solved things. And then generally you see that the ice was much further south. So we're able to sail further north now than we were in the past. So yes, I can confirm that the predictions are correct. We get less and less ice in the Arctic, and that's because it's getting warmer, of course, which is worrying long term.
All right. Another question here from YouTube. It's a small space on the boat. So did everybody get along the whole time, and how did you entertain yourselves?
Yeah, mostly we get well along, and I try to get people on board that's been on the boat before, because as I said, some of my best friends, I know I couldn't bring them on an expedition like this because we're just too different. So it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with either me or them, but it's just a poor match over time. The main thing is to have nice people that are used to being living under somewhat challenging conditions. And we focus on eating well and sleeping well and staying warm and dry. And then also we have a dice game that we play a lot on the boat, where you start off with 5 dice each, and you have to bluff your way to victory. So that's, yeah.
All right, very cool. There's also a question in the chat about the picture behind you. Where is the sailboat in that picture?
Well, in this sailboat is up there. And then this was taken in Svalbard in 2015, actually, which is one of my favorite photos from the trips we've been on so far.
Yeah, very cool. All right, well, our fifth graders, we are going to wrap up shortly. So if there is another question kicking around there, send someone up to the camera. I've got one more here on YouTube as well, but I think I see a student or two making their way up. So let's start with the camera questions, and then we'll wrap up with the YouTube question.
How deep have you gone under the water?
or the ice?
So underwater with regular diving, I've gone to 46 meters, I think. I can't remember, actually. It's some years back, but close to 130 feet or something like that. So personally, I don't have a goal to go very deep. I prefer to stay in the shallow waters and try to get close to whales and other marine life. That's what excites me the most.
Has an animal ever eaten or devoured the camera?
If it's ever eaten the camera?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, actually, that's the polar bear is very naughty when it comes to cameras. So we put cameras on shore with motion detection so that it's going to start filming when the bear walks close. And we had one camera getting scratched up pretty bad because a polar bear came and chewed on the camera. And of course, the camera didn't work either. So we got nothing but a chewed up camera. So yes, I think that's the closest. And also in the video, you saw the walrus swim all the way up to the ROV and push the ROV away. So yeah. But I'd say the polar bears is definitely the worst when it comes to eating cameras.
All right. Fifth graders from Kansas City, thank you so much for being with us today. You guys had awesome questions. I can't tell from your window, but do you guys have snow there right now?
Yes. Yeah. We're on the tail end of our Arctic week. We had freezing cold temperatures.
-13.
-13, I
Ooh.
think. But 30 degrees feels like a heat wave for us right now.
All right.
We're all looking forward to spring, aren't we?
Yeah. Please.
Definitely. Awesome, fifth graders. Well, thanks for hanging out. We're going to grab one more question here from YouTube, and then we will wrap up for today. And as always tends to be with classrooms, there is questions, again, about food. So was there someone in charge of preparing the food? Was it shared? And then what kind of meals did you have on board?
Yeah, so it depends a bit. Sometimes if we're lucky, we have someone who makes all the food on the boat, but typically we share that responsibility. And those that really don't know how to cook, they end up doing the dishes. And then the first week we eat normal food as you would eat at home, more or less. But as the time goes by, a lot of the produce, like salads and stuff, it won't keep that long. So then we have to switch to canned food and dried food. And yeah, so after 3 weeks, we're ready to get some salad when we're back on shore. But a lot of the food will keep well, like potatoes, oranges, and eggs, and we can bake bread and whatnot. And then it's a welcome substitute when we catch some fish, fresh fish for dinner.
All right. Well, you've shared some amazing stories with us. The pictures, the video, whether it's from the ROV, the drones, or getting into the water, are absolutely incredible. You've probably got 3 years or more worth now. Are there any plans for that footage in the future?
Yes, we are. So the video you saw, that's already been sold to an aquarium here in Norway, which is great. So it's going to be streaming there for a couple of years. And then we are also working on a documentary. We've also used some of the 360, the VR footage in educational programs. So we are working on getting it out there. But also we need your help, Joe, to spread the images, which we're doing today, which is great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, first of all, a shout out to our classroom in Kansas City. Thank you to our classrooms tuning in on YouTube today and those who will watch the recording later. Andreas, it's so great to steal a little bit of your time and to dive into the expedition. And we can't wait for the next one with Starlink now. It's very exciting that we can do some of these now from the ship. I think it's great to take students into that world when we can.
Yeah, always happy to be here, Joe. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to sign off for today. Take a look at the website for some more of our polar region events that we have coming up before the end of January. And then February is coming up. We kick all the men out for the month and we host women in science and exploration all month long. So that's going to be a lot of fun. For now, though, we're going to sign off and have a great rest of the day, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.